By the way, if you look me up, look at the images, you'll see me chained across the country in different places.
So you basically, how would you describe a professional agitator, activist?
Revolutionary activist, agitator, non-professional, never gotten paid a cent for it.
But good at what you do.
I've gotten within 15 feet of the president twice.
Drop the flyers at the bush.
Feet of the bush, people, and then they were treated like I had a demo.
So now you say you're a domestic, you're classified as a...
Okay, what happened is that, you know the public housing protests about 7 years ago?
Right.
Okay. Do you remember that there was a crazy white lady who kept chaining herself to the building?
That was you?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of which, St. Bernard Public Housing, I was chained 17 days out with a couple friends of mine. Anyway, they let me out, and they laughed because they said, the protest at City Hall has already started, so you're going to miss it, as they processed me out. I was so tired, if they hadn't reminded me about it, I wouldn't have done it. But instead of going straight home and taking a shower, I immediately went to the protest, and it wasn't over at City Hall. And that's where they knocked my teeth out and I got spinal surgery from.
Oh.
I ended up having 4 vertebrae fused from the cops. And that's because, hypothetically, the lock, however solid it looked, and the chains on the lock, however solid it looked, just kind of fell apart, hypothetically. And then somebody, like me, sat down in the gate after it was pulled open by protesters, sat down with my shoulders to each side so it couldn't be closed, and people who lived in those buildings got to leap over and go get to the door so they could go into city council, and it would be on camera if they were dragged out. Anyway, it kind of really pissed them off, the boss.
Yeah, they don't like that.
Not after I just spent 17 days embarrassing them, going through a cordon that included, like, a lot of electronic crap. Anyhow, yeah, they were a little extra pissed. So when they finally got, I had chained myself to the door, too, so they couldn't quite get me off it immediately. So they kept tasing me 4 times. At the same time.
You don't look like you're that much threatening. No, come on. I mean, you know, what are they, you know.
I run open clinics. I leave soup kitchens to open medical clinics for people. But, you know, we had to forge documents to get in. I had to forge documents that said my doctors and nurses were reporters.
Still doesn't mean they should be tased.
4 times simultaneously. I forgot anything. It took me an hour at the hospital before I could remember my name. And I wasn't the only one. 2 of us got it. But I was definitely one. I was the only one beat badly. Enough that the teeth went. You know?
Was any charges filed for that, or did you?
No, but I sued them, and I couldn't. After a year, every lawyer who normally sues them said you're untouchable. If we take the case, we'll never work it in front of another judge in 3 parishes in Rome.
No corruption here, is there?
So I put $500 out and spent a year looking for the right lawyers for nothing.
I'm going to get arrested.
Time to go to, well, hey, I'm planning for it because last night, Trump, I was like, darn it, I really wanted to avoid that. This was going to be, for once, I was going to stay here and get arrested for local causes. I was like, you know what, Clinton's not worth it, and a couple of the Republicans aren't worth it. There's no way that idiot will get it. And then last night happened, you know. I hate Cleveland. I hate Cleveland jails. I've even sworn I'd never go back.
So you're adamantly against Trump?
What?
You're adamantly against Trump?
As a human being, I have no idea how I feel like a loser. As a human being, yes. I find him racist.
Really?
And bigoted.
I'm looking at it because I still think we're not going to have an election. I think we're going to have martial law before that.
I've been expecting it, but I'm guessing it will be in 4 years because Hillary Clinton will cause it or Donald Trump will cause it. Doesn't matter.
I don't think so. I think it's going to happen before. This is my reason.
Okay.
the boiling point has basically been reached already.
I was at Ferguson
Yeah, but
6 months.
the boiling
Then I was in Baltimore.
the boiling point has been reached already.
I gotta sit again,
Yeah,
sorry.
already. One of the biggest things that have come up in this campaign has been the bringing back the conspiracies, 9/11, even the Kennedy assassinations were back in the news.
By the way, just so you know, on 9/11, I have something that I should have written it. I should have told people. I told you that, good, this is, please,
Yeah.
everybody should hear this.
Right.
I'm just not an electronically sophisticated person, so I never put it online. As a devoted activist, and not a pacifist activist, I reserve my right to defend myself. I know I'm not going to go whacking on people who aren't hurting me, but I will defend others and I will defend myself. I am not, unless I've agreed with other people like pacifists, that I'm not going to do it at that time of protest.
It has its tactic.
That's my word, exactly.
It has its tactic.
One should have a variety of tactics.
Gandhi proved that.
Exactly. It has its tactic, there's times for it.
Yes.
But I'm just stating up front I'm not. Because my reaction to 9/11 was a little different than others. First thing I said was, wow, somebody had some good targets. I'm really sad. There's a lot of people who shouldn't be hurt down there. But the targets are right, whether it be targets of the word or violence. They were the targets one would hit to cause change.
Yeah, they were definitely the symbols of...
You know, I wasn't advocating, people making sandwiches and just, firing them and that wasn't the point. Second thought, though, that I had was, well, I'd been asked for 2 weeks, the cops had said to me, corner me. Now, I don't particularly like cops in Washington, D.C. I've been running the soup kitchen for more than 10 years. They didn't like me, I didn't like them, and I pushed one mayor of D.C. into a nervous breakdown because he kept closing homeless shelters. And so that made it worse because I kept getting through their security, and they were even more embarrassed than the Secret Service because it was like 15. I stayed 4.5 days, you can look it up in the Washington Post, 4.5 days on the ledge outside the mayor's office to try and he closed the shelter 3 days before Thanksgiving in one of the coldest known winters that was coming up. A few days later, 12 people froze to death in the street next to a government building that was closed. It had been closed for 20 years but was heating because they wanted to keep the pipes from freezing. So 12 people froze outside. Okay, so the next day after that, I showed up at the mayor's office ledge. Okay. The reason I say all these things is just to say that I am a capable activist.
Yes.
If not
Put yourself on the line.
Right. Okay. Anyway. So, after those first couple thoughts, I thought, well, there's 2 weeks. These people, cops that think I'm a pacifist just because I ally with a lot of pacifists have been going, we know some of your people aren't pacifists, but we know you are. You've never done anything to anybody in 5 years of protest. Look at what you run. We know you're not you must be a pacifist because I hadn't ever made an open political statement one way or the other. They just assumed. And they said, something's coming this month. We know it's coming soon. Tell me about it.
And this is...
2 weeks before 9/11. And they did it right up to the day before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened. And I went, I wonder if this is what they were talking about. I mean, how could I not wonder that?
Yeah, of course.
The president was out of town.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple friends of mine and I had always believed that if there was ever a legitimate target in this country for change, real change, the Pentagon was both symbol of the military and legitimate. Again?
It would have been targeted before.
Exactly. Again, I would deplore the loss of life, but the symbol it represented deserves to be taken down. So everybody knew that the cops had been looking for me to get information for 2 weeks, and I'd been more and more uncomfortable. And now, after the the last time they did it, I said, you know, I'm not a pacifist. In fact, I'm the one that's training the people who aren't pacifists. So, you know, I also train pacifists, but I'm not a pacifist. And I made them go away. And they were like, you're out there looking for you. He said that 12 hours before the towers went down. So I met up with a couple of people I trusted completely, and we walked over to where the last place we thought they would think somebody like us would be, which we walked over to the side of the Pentagon, which you can, at that point they hadn't even put caution tape up and guards up. You could cut through the Pentagon parking lot from the walking bridge. So it was early on. After that, you know, bristle of guards. But before, we actually walked through the parking lot at an angle to get to the highway where people were gathered, which allowed us to be within 50 feet of what was going on over here for a brief minute. We were afraid to turn our heads too hard. But as we walked and could see more and more, the silhouette of what went in was that.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, you believe me, but just so you know, not lying here, the silhouette slightly curved, like it could be a plane body, but where was the wings?
Yeah.
If the wings had enough fuel in them, even reinforced, they should have gone in a little bit.
You at least did. They would have broken off.
That's the other thing. Or they would have broken off, and in that parking lot we would have saw flames from the fuel. Neither was happening. Were flames being fought inside, but the only hole we saw was that. So don't know much more than that, but I think that's an important thing to say.
Well, indeed, and here's my point on it. The truth of 9/11 now, I mean, like the Kennedy assassination, people that have a living memory of the Kennedy assassination now, a majority of them believe that it was someone other than Oswald. We were lied to.
Right.
Well, now that same majority exists with 9/11. We have to, thanks to the internet, a majority of people now, when polled, say we were lied to about 9/11. So it's come up in the presidential debate. It's one of the things that Trump scared Bush out of the campaign with, because he started bringing up 9/11 and Bush ran tail.
Right.
Well,
I know they did.
the 28 pages have come up recently. Now, Trump, to his credit, love him, hate him, whatever you want to do, has been the only candidate that has said, and this is a quote, you elect me president, you will find out who really brought down the Twin Towers.
Wow.
And he said that he would, and he's a big proponent of releasing the 28 pages.
Thank you. That would be nice. I'd sure like it.
He said the first day in office he will release them.
Every time I remember seeing it. It's not like I didn't even think missile at the time. I just thought, you know, I read John Grisham's book about how airplanes hit buildings, and I've actually seen pictures of airplanes accidentally hitting buildings.
Yeah.
And there's something wrong with that.
Well, we've seen pictures.
The only way you could have gotten it that way is if it was completely sideways. I mean, I'm just telling you.
They're physically impossible for what they're telling us that happened. I mean, the Hidden in Plain Sight, the documentary, did a great job of exposing that. So we know that what we were told was a lie. It's a blatant lie. We're talking about Trump, a man who has been intimately involved in building many, many, many buildings. He knows what structures are. He knows that's an inside job, and he will expose it. And as I said, that's why I'm believing they're not going to allow this election to happen. They cannot ever allow the truth of 9/11 to be exposed, to come out to the surface.
I helped Ross Perot get almost 30,000 signatures, even though he's Ross Perot, because he was anti-FTA.
Yeah,
so, you know, I wasn't necessarily fond of other things he said.
Sure, right.
But he was far better than the alternative for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, last time I actively supported a politician, except for Kucinich. But yeah. Who I know is on the other side considerably, but it's amazing. That other side, it's more like a circle, not a straight line. Politics doesn't work quite like, economically, I'm a leftist. Government interference, I'm right-winger.
Yeah.
Least government is possible is best.
Yes.
Least government possible.
Why don't we just write our own legislation, vet it ourselves, and vote on ourselves directly?
And even so, I think that if we can't get a vote at 70% or 65 to 70%, then nothing should go through.
Again,
But I agree.
Yeah,
I said I am a proponent of what's called direct democracy. What you're saying is
direct
exactly
democracy.
I agree. Absolutely.
and I think the whole system right now is, I mean, they're going to spend
You know what I want to know?
$3 billion in this election is going to be spent. And you're spending the kind of money, you're selling something.
Just a personal piece of pride. In Boston, for the Democrats, they had over $65 million of security for the Democratic National Convention. It took me a purchases of $4.97 at a local Salvation Army store to be able to fake my way in. Now, the Republican convention had almost double that money. It had over $110 million security. Well, I broke that security, like shattered that one because it was the Republicans. No, I not only got in and out, I acquired, don't talk about that too loudly, but I acquired the ability, one might say a reporter's card got dropped somewhere and I happened to pick it up, or a delegate's card. I'm not going to say at this late date or even remember, but somehow those allowed me through because of a card on my neck. Pretty much any time I wanted.
I used to get backstage with a tag that said, "I'm with the band." That's all it said. I'm with the band, and I would get in backstage, you know.
My first foray into this sort of thing was I made a fake ID when I was in high school that said that I was a student, a 21-year-old student at Miskatonic University. Now, if you're a science fiction fan, you know that that's an imaginary university. It's where Cthulhu fans and stuff go to. It's Miskatonic University, where they teach occult arts of witchcraft. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
However, the one that personally I think is the most interesting is there was this lawyer. She wasn't even a really leftist-leaning lawyer. She was just a lawyer who happened to believe in the Constitution. She was working on it. They told people where we were going to protest on certain lines, they told the office workers not to come in, but she had a big case. She came in. And she watched us being hit with rubber bullets. One guy actually got a rubber bullet in the eye because the cops wouldn't stop shooting the rubber bullets. Tear gas was flying.
What city was this in?
This was Miami, 2003. And you know what? You're never going to have seen. It never went to the news because the news is controlled.
Yeah,
okay? So you're not going to have seen it. That's why this is important.
Yeah.
The only reason is because people don't know that the police, it was a planned way to react. They were told they would go out 2 days before we came. They went in out to the worst neighborhoods, one of which was next to our headquarters. And they said, if you see anybody that's got any politics, and they named the type of politics, or symbols that we use, we won't see that if it is acquired by you. We'll be blind to it. In other words, they were saying, go ahead and steal all those expensive cameras. He said, they're going to have video cameras. They're going to have computers. If it gets into your hands, we will be blind.
Yeah.
They actually took, we had a car that had a U-Haul behind it. And it carried the papers to explain to people in Miami why we were doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
And
that's my standard of response.
we left it where all the other cars were, and about 3 in the morning it suddenly caught fire. Just the U-Haul.
Spontaneous combustion. Like Michael Hastings' brand new Mercedes-Benz just blew up, just an accident, just happens all the time to brand new Mercedes.
Exactly. The U-Haul caught fire.
That happens, a spark. Can't be too careful.
Yep, that was pretty. Somebody must have been smoking, and
He ran over a thermal vent, which, you know.
Anyway, that was okay. So that makes this. It's a little slow to start. The first 3 minutes might discourage you. That's because we had several thousand workers who worked in the fields and migrant workers, and we were trying to get. We had a 40-mile long march, which we did in 3 days for them, with them, and so when we talk about that, there wasn't. It's more talking than I would have liked, but I think the rest of it will be very useful. And if you get stills from it, you can actually search for it on the images Google. But anyway, so the lawyer who wasn't a leftist, looking over, seeing tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets, everything. And they knew that it was people singing with their arms length, walking towards the barricade, and then stopping at the barricade. On that street, we weren't trying to push our way through. Thousands of people were being shot, and she went, you know, I was on the cop's side till that very second. No. And she came down in her suit, with a sign she'd just made out of the magic markers that her secretary had. She held up the sign and it was a sign about civil rights. It was a completely different sign. Ours was about certain political things. Hers was about the police and civil rights, and they started aiming all the rubber bullets at her, and the woman stood there as the sign, hole after hole was poked through it and hit her in the chest and the face and the neck and all over her body, and she had the guts to shout back at him and saying, you have no right to do this, I'm doing nothing to you. He said, stand 30 feet back. I'm stood 30 feet back. You're still shooting at me. Anyway, that woman, I think her image might be of interest to you. Because if you see like rubber bullet holes going through a sign, cops on one side, lawyer, single woman holding it up, and just what she wrote on the sign, I think, fits with
image, that's why I'm in it. Imagery, propaganda and imagery are all part of the fight.
So that's why.
I mean, some of the images that brought a change thing, I mean, the little napalm naked girl in Vietnam.
Exactly.
The My Lai massacre. You know, things like those images are things that can change tides overnight.
The people that had the grant to make the movie had their grant cut off from that. They put it on online free because their grant was because some of the funds, though it was handled by an agency that wasn't government, some of the funds ultimately came from the government. So suddenly they're not allowed to put their film out, and they just put it out on the free. So
well, that's why YouTube is killing them. I mean, the internet is killing them right now. Because, I mean, people are going more and looking at YouTube more than they're looking at that. I think that's your pen.
I thought so. I was going to ask.
Yeah. So people are, I mean, as I said, with the media having a 6% approval rating, they're jokes now. The only reason they even go to the mainstream media right now is to ridicule them.
This is Anderson Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that CIA operative, all the
Oh, my bloody God. I got inside the Boston National Convention with banners. And not just banners, helpers. We were doing all sorts of stuff. And at one point, we popped out 3 seats in front of their camera with a banner. And his immediate reaction was, turn that camera around onto somebody who means something that is here, is a political person. That's not news. And I went, we broke almost $70,000 worth of security. We broke almost $70,000 worth of security, and we just proved it in front of you. How is that not news? He says, you don't decide the news. What happens out there doesn't decide the news. I decide the news. That's a direct quote from Anderson Cooper that everybody likes.
Not everybody. He's got zero credibility. You know what family he comes from, don't you?
No, I don't know.
Vanderbilt.
Should have guessed. But anyway, that's why.
He's a direct Vanderbilt descendant.
Can I ask you one more question, and it's a total change of subject? Because I told you my Anderson Cooper story, and you can spread that around because people trust the bastard.
Well then.
But he was telling the truth.
Oh, at that moment, that's the only truth. He was. Yeah, I had a guy look at my "They Lie" media sign there.
Right.
It was about 2 years ago. And he wouldn't let me film him, but he was with his family. So I said, I don't think he's lying. His family's right there. But we had a little conversation. He looked at my sign, and we got talking about the media. And this is what he said to me.
Yes.
He says, I've been a major news editor, or a news editor for a major news network for 24 years. And the best you will ever hear from us is a half-truth to cover a lie. Very easily.
I have a few articles out there. You have my name. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at just the articles I picked. One from Miami Ladies of Dade. It was about the jail. I was held inside the jail for 7 days before the warden actually asked the judge to reverse his decision to keep me there. And that was because it took me 4 days to get 73 women to sit to protest and fast. 4 days. By 6th day, I had them refusing to move and make way for the guards, going limp. In the meantime, I'd had arranged to get out to the lawyers what they had on the cans. Women who worked in the kitchen, I got them to smuggle the labels out, and they didn't know why. A lot of them couldn't even read. And these were people who were accused of a crime but hadn't been convicted of a crime. Sometimes they were in there for 9 months. One was 11 months. I actually saw a woman raped as I was processed. Raped by cops as I was processed. I saw it with my own eyes. I have no idea what I could describe one of the guards. The others were blurry to me, and because I was in handcuffs and had my own, where they threatened to break my thumbs. This was all Miami.
Yeah.
It was Miami and model policing, and they. So on the last day that I was actually in, they finally smuggled to me a can label that came from the kitchen. It was stamped with the kit because everything comes in is stamped. Yes, the guard says yes, it's supposed to be in there, so it's not a drug, right? Stamp it. Okay, so we take the label and I smuggled it out to the lawyers I knew, the civil rights lawyers I knew in Pennsylvania or in Miami. We did this in Pennsylvania too, with almost as much success, but it wasn't just me. In Miami, I was the only one that got stuck in jail. It had to do with me getting behind the cop lines and interfering with things they said. Anyway, they couldn't prove it. Anyway, so on that last day, we get the label, and the label says, this product not intended for human consumption.
Anywhere in the city.
Animal fodder. It was pig slop. We got the women's side of the jail rebuilt. We got every prisoner who was in at all, for as far back as we could trace back the company serving that food. We got $5,000. The leadership that I'd helped develop, who did stuff with me, each got up to $10,000. And things changed.
Good for you. You're a true leader. You're a true warrior, lady. True warrior.
I don't want anybody to think it's boasting. The reason I tell people things is so they know it can be done.
Sure, that's why I'm out here. This can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah, that's it. You can be done. Do something.
And that was the
And
other
if you
one.
can't do support the people that are.
Support the ones that are doing it, yes. I mean, one of my ideas, I do cop watch regularly. It's very hard, though, for me to acquire the badges. And every time I put in a foyer thing for the police here in New Orleans, they lose it, or they mailed it and the mail just didn't get it to me, or, I just can't get it. So there's details, like, okay, as someone who was homeless for a short time and who respects the homeless, many of whom are good people.
Yeah, sure. Could be a lot more of it soon too.
I think there's more good people among the homeless than there are among the tourists. Here's my story on that one. I became homeless. I had to go to D.C. because to get my family back, I needed lawyers and pro bono, and there was this highfalutin attorney's place that said they do give me pro bono, but I had to give them information, so I had to stick around. And the first 3 days I hid at the train station because it seemed like there were lots of lights and guards, and I was terrified because white women from West Virginia didn't know that cities, didn't know anything, freaked out. Black and white men walk up to me after the third day. The guards shoo me away after only 2 hours of sleep. And they go, "Lady, just please trust us. I know it's going to be hard, but we're going to try and help you. We've been on the streets a long time. Come with us." And I walked 50 feet behind him, and I'm ashamed to say, I was late, and even then I was terrified. Heart beating fist fast, lump in my throat. I should be ashamed of myself now, but that's how I felt. They took me to 2 places that would give me food at different times of the day. They pointed out the women's shelter, and then they said, "But it's a bad place to be." And they made me come one more place. And by that time, I was a little more trustworthy, but I was still kind of weird. And then they go into this bush area of the parking lot that had gotten overgrown, and the weeds near the back of the railroad. And they pushed an abandoned car back there. It was big van or small van or big hatchback. I don't know what you'd call it. But it was clearly old and probably abandoned. But it had locks on the doors. It had all windows. And they said, "We've been sleeping in this at night. We're a lot less unsafe than you are right now.
Let us know then.
Sleep here. Lock us out. You'll see us in the food line in the morning. You'll at least get some sleep." And they left. What middle-class person would offer their home to me? You know, so...
Dealing with the streets out here, I deal with a lot of street people, and you have to treat them with the respect
Yeah,
like
that's
there's
key.
anybody else, and I find that they actually have more to say than most everybody else. And,
They're not dumb. Most of them aren't lazy.
I've been homeless myself. I know what it's all about. I know how it
Me
can
too.
happen, And it is. I mean, the people that don't know, the ones in the middle class, ones we see walking around here, are living in a bubble. They have no idea.
It's a dream that was designed by corporations.
Yeah, and they have no idea what it's like to be without. They're going to find out real soon.
They'll wake up. There'll be an alarm
They're going to find out,
but they're dreaming right now.
They're shocked.
They're like sheep in a field dreaming away.
Oh, yeah. And at least we're psychologically prepared for what's coming. If nothing else, we might not be any way other prepared. But psychologically, we're not going to be as freaked out as these people are. I don't know. No way.
But you can do something. The only reason I tell these sales is you can do something. Things change. The city 4.5 days on the mayor's office ledge, which, like I said, was in the Washington Post, brought a lot of angry letters to bear. And 2 weeks after he closed the shelter, he reopened the shelter for more people than there'd been at the other shelter. So it took us 2 weeks, and many people arrested me on the ledge when I don't like heights, and I didn't have a rope around me, just a gutter to sleep in. Stone gutter, luckily, it was wide. Watch that drop. Don't turn over. But we got it. And it lasted for almost 8 years, this big shelter, so you can do stuff. But I want where every day, preferably a fault of the politician or the oversight committees of the politicians or the police commissioners or the city council that decides things for those people. But I want every day to have something in it. Have big pictures for every month. Have a monthly calendar. And you know what? I need somebody to help me do the digging on the research, because I don't want it to be superficial things that were already in the newspaper. For example, the homeless, the reason I brought them up is that right now at the shelter, they're being harassed.
Oh, sure they are.
Money is being stolen from them. and they're being kicked out at times that
They're
the shelter's supposed
disappearing too. I've seen a lot of
open.
them.
Exactly, that's happening. But all of it at that particular shelter, what is it, the Mission?
Yeah.
At the Mission
Yeah.
is done by a female cop and some different partners, but a female cop who has a ponytail. And they call her Ponytail Girl. I don't know her name. I'm gonna go look for her, but you know, I'm pretty sure if I looked at her and took a picture at her, it's possible somebody who knows electronics could search her picture and get what.
Oh, it's not. You can do face scans on Facebook now.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like if I got a picture of her, it's possible, but I wouldn't know how to do that. It's beyond me.
Yeah.
Okay, it just is. I mean,
And
or if
anybody with a cell phone today can do it.
if anybody wants to sit down with me and teach a slow dyslexic person to do that, that's not my forte. Fine, but if somebody wants to do the research, I could be doing other political stuff
Yeah.
while they do the research. That would be support. I'm sure you have things like that that
Oh,
you wish you could
I
get to support.
kid me, I need to get cloned. I ain't got enough time. I mean, just out here with
That's
the
what I'm
films
saying.
I'm doing. You know, I got 4 cameras here.
Want me to do something from Nature at Brown and Malcolm X and Sojourner Truth on your corner?
Sure.
I'm going to do it in the square, so I might as well come over here and do it. It'll be a few days, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I do. Bye-bye.